It's showtime!
Welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge podcast, where we talk about leadership and successful entrepreneurs and veterans come and tell their story. I hope you enjoy the show. Follow me. Let's go. This podcast is brought to you by Victory Leadership Coaching, your premier leadership training and coaching provider. You can learn more at victoryleadershipcoaching.com, and you can also purchase their book, Why Organizations Should Develop Their Leaders, a pocket guide at amazon.com. Enjoy the show. Hello, social media. This is JJ Hardy and Chris Pinkowski. We're here today on the leadership chat with Chris and JJ. And today we're doing a pretty cool topic. It's not covered as much as I would like to see it covered, but we're going to talk about problem solving as leaders. And I'm going to go over one repeatable process of doing it. But, you know, there are so many different ways. It doesn't even matter. Chris, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, JJ. Hanging in there. It's Friday. I always look forward to these leadership lives every other week. So I'm looking forward to getting into talking about problem solving, because I agree. It's something that is not talked about enough, and it's such a big piece of leadership. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic today.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and get right into it. So first of all, when I think problem solving, I think of when something hard happens, what you do in response to that to either come to a conclusion, to execute, or to achieve a desired outcome. Mm-hmm. And I do think coming up with a trainable process is important to that, with something like that, something that's repeatable.
Yep.
Because if you don't have any way to train that, then all you're doing is critiquing people on a regular basis. And so I came from the military. There's always, you know, they have dummy ways of doing everything, to be quite honest with you, because if they don't put on the front of the Claymore mine that this side faces towards the enemy, then soldiers are going to blow themselves up. Right. So, you know, they have to train everything down to the smallest detail. And we can go into more detail with that in just a second, but I want into each step in just a second, but I want to go over the 7 steps to problem solving that I was trained on. And then we can see what Chris's take is on that, and maybe go into more in depth, or let's just see where it goes. So 7 steps to problem solving. You start off with identifying the problem. Then you list the facts and assumptions. So you make a list of things that you could do to solve that problem. You create solutions. So which one of those things on the list is a viable way to execute and get that solved? You analyze the solutions, which just means you think about it some more. You compare them together. You know, which one am I gonna do? That's basically all it is. Then you make and implement the decision, and then you evaluate and you learn. So that's like an AAR. Mm-hmm. So yep. What do you think about that?
So that's a super straightforward way to approach problem solving. What I'll add to that is, a lot of times, this is where people kind of fall short in their problem solving, is they're not looking for the root cause. So, you know, they'll pick the first issue and they'll start going through those steps that you just listed out. What's the problem? What are potential solutions? Without understanding what's causing that problem, right? They stay at the surface, and a lot of times when you just stay at the surface and you don't address that root cause, the same problem continues to come back up time and time again. So what I do in addition, and you know, you and I, as we've been talking, a lot of the leadership stuff that I do has some kind of military component in it, right? We've talked about after action reviews. We've talked about all these other things that originate from one branch of the military, and, you know, OODA loops is another one, and they've been adopted by the civilian world. So I'll always start with, the 5 whys of, all right, let's get to the root cause here, asking ourselves, why is this happening? So, all right, problem, why is it happening? Number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way down to asking ourselves that question 5 times before seeing, like, all right, that's the root cause. And now we start addressing, going through those 7 steps that you just talked about once we've gotten to the root cause. So that's the only thing that I would add to that, is to make sure that you're not just addressing surface level stuff, sweeping the true problem under the rug just to put a Band-Aid on. I want to get to the root. Let's attack the actual wound and not just put a Band-Aid on it if it needs stitches.
I agree. And, one thing I noticed about both of the things that we said, and again, this is another way we intersect almost all the time, is that it's a repeatable and trainable process.
Yeah.
So you got to consider, let's say you have teenage kids like I do,
And
right? And you.
Yep.
And that, look, for lack of a better way of saying it, let's call them knuckleheads, right? When they become adults, they still probably can't open the fridge and look in there and figure out what they're going to make themselves for dinner.
That's right.
And so when you think about those people going out into the workforce, what's an easy process to train them on how to think about things and get things done? Well, root cause analysis, the whys. I love that. I've used that before too. And I'm glad you added that component, because I don't know why, but I really wasn't thinking in that vein when I came up with problem solving. Root cause analysis is important. You got to figure out what the problem is before you can solve it. And then having a problem solving process. I mean, there are 5 steps, there are 10 steps, there are 3 steps. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to figure out a way that can be duplicated and taught the same way to every employee, so that it's just like creating a culture.
Yep.
You are all doing things the same way. And though that person may come in with another framework, it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean they have to adopt yours. If they already understand how to solve problems and they're great at it, then, oh, well, wonderful, fantastic. They might go through your training and they can in, out, drive on sort of thing. But it's just a place to start. And we got a couple comments here from Michael Hummel. It's not talked about until it happens. Be proactive, not reactive. And You know what? I'm going to put this up here. And he said, it's not always cookie cutter. I think you can take a situation that happens and use those steps, but I think you have to think about the specific problem and how it might react to that said problem. Yeah, exactly.
100%.
And that's part of the analysis. That's why, if you're not using one that has the analysis, both on the initial, on the actual steps it takes to solve it, but also in comparing different solutions as well, then, you probably need to add those in there, because one solution could be better than another solution. Sometimes the most important thing is just to take action and get the problem solved. But sometimes it might be a really big one that you have to do planning and all that other stuff. And if you have a set process, then yes, you have to compare the solutions. I agree with you, Michael.
And, I think that the cookie cutter aspect of that is, what are the steps that we're taking? Because yes, not all problems are the same. Not all solutions are the same, right? You need to be dynamic, and you definitely need to be proactive. You need to respond, not react, right? But having the same set of steps in order to identify the problems, the solutions are going to be dynamic. But that's where the repeatable process of training comes in from a leadership standpoint, right? We want, once we have figured out the recipe, we want that recipe repeated, and then be able to, send that downstream across the organization. This is how we're going to go through these steps. And absolutely, you need to be willing to think outside the box, Michael, 100%, because that is where the best solutions come from, right? The days of like, that's how we've always done it, so therefore this is how we're going to do it again. That doesn't fix all the problems. It gives you a starting point, right? Okay, if we do this, what could be the outcome? But what are other potential solutions? Well, without getting to the root cause and following a process to get to a root cause, coming up with those out of the box solutions is going to be tough. So I think it gives you a starting point, a framework, but absolutely, you need to be creative. You need to be adaptive in order to come up with the best solution for that issue.
Well, and even in the military, this is a point of failure for them, and it's also a point of failure in the civilian workforce. You don't get that training until you are either about to take a management position or you've been in a management position and now you're about to become part of a staff. Right. Well, what happens to those guys that are out working every day and you're critiquing them all the time? This is a great way to bring them together and teach them a repeatable framework as well. This is something that if people are in a staff, this is a well-known way to do things, but you got to teach it to your, I shouldn't call them the lowest common denominator, but the people that are at the bottom of the food chain at work, and not just the people that are making the major decisions and taking all of the actions in the company. This should be taught to everybody. Yeah. And if you don't, things will probably be okay, but how much more efficient could things be if everybody is working off of the same framework?
And, JJ, you and I covered that. I don't even remember how many weeks ago, is making sure that you're communicating in a way that everybody understands. That is so important because, if you're communicating to, and I think we did even say like lowest common denominator, right? If they get it, then everyone else upstream, damn well better get it. But that's also where the out of the box thinking comes from, right? When you empower your people and say, hey, here's our steps to problem solving. Now I want your solutions as the guy who hasn't seen this before. Give us some perspective. Give us that like fresh set of eyes, because maybe the way that we've always done it isn't going to work now. So bringing everyone in, creating that sense of, hey, we're a team here to solve a problem together. And also, by the way, when you take the solutions of those people that are downstream from you and you say, you know what, that's the best solution. Now I'm going to give you the accountability of implementing. I'm here to support you and help you move forward. Dude, the leadership capital that you build with that is phenomenal.
You know what? You just brought up two very important concepts that one we've covered and one we haven't. One is delegating. Boom. You brought that up. That's powerful. But what does delegating lead to? A decentralized leadership culture.
Yes.
If in the audience, you haven't heard of this concept where you are spreading the decision-making out within your organization, if you feel like you're doing all of the work for one person or another person and you're not empowering them to screw up or succeed in their own lane, this is where it comes in right here. Mm-hmm. Teach them to problem solve, and you just relinquish some of that crap that you're dealing with on your own. You can spread that out a little bit and allow people to come together as a team.
Yeah. And one of the pieces of that, decentralized decision-making and delegating is like drop the 50-cent words. Use language that literally everyone that you're communicating to is going to understand and is going to connect with.
Yeah.
Stop trying to put yourself on a pedestal as a leader and show how smart you are. No one gives a shit how smart you think you are.
Mm-mm.
Talk to them in the way that they're going to say, you know what, that dude's one of us and he has the same goals in mind as we do. So now let's roll up our sleeves and get after it.
And Michael's on it again, man. Look at this. He said exactly what you just said.
There you go. That's right.
You can't be pretentious and one-sided in your speech.
That's
no,
right.
you can't. You can't. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, but if you are speaking at somebody or over somebody's head, you're not making yourself look smart. You're being stupid.
That's right.
Because being clear and concise is all about communicating to your audience, not your audience trying to figure out what the hell you're saying. So it can't go both ways. I talked about active communication, not just active listening. Active communication is when you are, whether you're giving instructions or you're teaching something or whatever, but going back through and asking people what you said so that you know that they understood it. If you're just being pretentious and you're over speaking and all that other stuff and people don't understand what you're saying, guess what? I said it earlier, it's going to go in, out, and they're going to go on doing what they thought they were supposed to do instead of what you actually wanted them to do.
Yeah. Early in my career, I was a real estate developer, and I come from a family. It's been in the construction trades for generations. And, I had this job and I was leading construction crews. Right. And it was probably a solid 18 months into this job that I came dressed up one day. I was wearing a suit because I had an event at the school that I graduated from. And one of the senior guys, one of the superintendents was like, "What's going on? You got a court date or something?" And I said, "No, man, I'm going to this event over at the University of Penn." And he's like, "What are you going there for?" I said, "That's where I went to college." And he was like, "You're kidding me. I never would have thought you're one of these Ivy League retards." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, because I don't come across that way. Like, I'm here rolling up my sleeves with you." But yeah, 18 months, solid 18 months before anyone knew what my background was, because I wasn't throwing it in anyone's face. I wasn't coming in using big words and trying to throw that stuff around. And yeah, it was, that was one of many times that people didn't know what my credentials were, because my credentials aren't me. And,
what do you get an education for? It's not so that you have credential. Well, unless you need those credentials, right? But otherwise, education is there so that you can learn what you need to know to take yourself either to the next level in your business, or maybe it's to make sure you start off in life with a good job, or whatever the case may be. I mean, if you are the type of person that holds your education over somebody else's head, you're not a leader.
No.
See, on my podcast and live streams, it says on the top, victory leadership. Well, you can't be victorious and you can't lead if you are being howdy-towdy with your credentials. Because at the end of the day, unless you're a doctor, nobody cares about your credentials,
right?
Unless you're applying for a job somewhere. And even then, these days, people are definitely more interested in your experience than your credentials.
Yep. Absolutely.
So you got to be careful. But communication is key when you're problem solving. Make sure you have a repeatable process. When you are getting to the root cause, make sure you have a repeatable process. Wait a minute. Am I repeating something here? Yes. Make sure you have a repeatable process that is easy to understand so that you can teach it. And then that person can teach it. And then another person that they taught to can teach it to their people, and so on and so forth. It shouldn't be hard to understand.
You're right. And, another component to problem solving that I think a lot of people get wrong is they try to solve the problem inside the problem. Like, they don't detach and step back and kind of look up and out, right? They're looking down and in, and it's so hard to identify what the problem is, what the root cause is when you're like this.
Yeah.
So until you're used to it, it's kind of counterproductive to say, hey, look, I'm going to stop, take a breath, and look up and out and try to get a bird's eye view of what's going on here before I start to, identify and analyze. So that's another big component of problem solving that people will tend to screw up, because it's like, oh, I need to fix this problem right here, right now, and I need to keep my head down and keep working. Dude, sometimes the best way to identify your root cause is to stop working and look at it from a distance and see like what's going on.
Do a full terrain analysis. That is so true. And just like anything else, if it's a complex problem, don't be afraid to get other people involved. And by the way, 9 times out of 10, when it's a complex problem, you have to, because your solution is not the only solution. And it's probably not necessarily, even though it could be, it's not necessarily going to be the right solution.
Yeah. And, we've talked about so many things, JJ,
yeah, I know.
And I don't know if we've talked about this or not. We may have, but it's the ego also. You need to, as a leader, put your ego in check. It doesn't have to be you that comes up with the solution to the problem. It is so much more beneficial a lot of times when you allow other people, or especially just give other people credit for coming up with that solution. Dude, get your ego out of the way. And that is going to help, because your ego is also what prevents you from getting other people involved to help you come up with a solution. Like, no, man, it's a team for a reason. You have experts for a reason. So utilize them, get them involved, put your ego to the side. You don't have to take credit for everything. The only thing you have to take credit for is when something goes wrong and you need to own it. All right, that went wrong. It was something that my team did. It's on me. But solutions, that's on my team. Good job, team. Congratulations. Beer's on me.
That's true. I think some people will listen to a little bit too much of Sonny and Cher. Sorry, I had to say it. I was thinking it, and I was like, should I say it? Should I not? But what the hell? Why
Thanks
not?
for showing your age.
Yeah. And if you don't understand that joke, that's okay. Just look it up.
Man.
No, but that's the song You're So Vain. No, it's very important to make sure that it takes a community to run a business. It takes a community to solve most problems. And if you're in a large enough business that has other managers, or even if you're in a section where you have employees, it definitely doesn't hurt to utilize the opinions of other people. You never know what kind of talent you have on your team until you use them to help you solve a problem.
That's right.
The experience, you don't know. I mean, you may have seen a resume, right? But you don't know at what extent anybody did any job in their past positions. The least likely person will usually come up with, in my experience, will come up with the best solutions.
Yeah.
They will surprise you.
Yep.
And so you're right. Ego. We could do a whole call on ego, my friend, but you have to take your trust issues and put them aside, because if you want to be not stressed out in your job, you have to learn how to trust other people. As I said already, oftentimes what you think really is not the whole picture. And unless you take a step back from it and observe everything, I think that's part of the reason why they teach people that are in management and higher positions stuff about problem solving, because they're usually the ones that they want out there doing that full terrain analysis. Mm-hmm. But if you teach your team a little bit about this stuff, guess what? You can do that terrain analysis with your team.
That's right.
And a lot of people get too caught up in, oh my gosh, Johnny has to do this, Sue has to do that, Joe Snuffy has to do that. And if you take a step back from that and just, I mean, most jobs I've been in, you always have time for a beginning of shift meeting or something like that, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Pick a topic, and if there's a big problem that needs to be solved, use that 5 to 10 minutes to talk about that. That's a long time.
Yeah.
If you use it right.
That's right. And yes, the other thing too is not overcomplicating. That's where people, it's kind of a glimmer of ego that shows through. Hey, I want to come up with this fancy solution to this problem. 9 out of 10 times, the most straightforward, simple solution. We've talked about the KISS theory, the KISS approach. That's where your solutions are going to come from. Stop overthinking it. But again, that leads back to ego. And hey, I want to pound my chest because I came up with this intricate 17-step solution to the problem, where, it's like, no, dude, 2 steps and we got this thing done.
Yeah, you should always keep it simple.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I know we're starting to get towards the end of the call. Usually at the 25 to 27 minute mark, we start wrapping things up. But, I guess if in kind of a closing thought, it might take a minute or so to go over it, but I just want to bring up, just to kind of wrap up everything we've talked about. When you are problem solving, first of all, you can't just look for the people that are really good at it. Sometimes you need to train the steps. Make sure you're taking a step back and also teaching people how to do the gosh, I can't even think of the thing that you brought up in the very beginning. It's the whys.
5 whys.
Yeah, the 5 whys, where you're getting to the root cause of the problem, root cause analysis. Good Lord. I don't know where my brain goes sometimes, but it just left the conversation. Anyway, no, but so you got to problem solve, but you got to do root cause analysis, and both of those things can be trained. Keep it simple. Make every process that you have in your business repeatable.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your ego out of it, and make sure you're using other people as part of your solutions, because first of all, even though you're using them as a tool, they're going to appreciate it because you're letting them put skin in the game.
That's right.
So you're going to actually build cohesion and teamwork. What are some closing thoughts that you have, Chris?
Closing thoughts from me is never stop at that first rung, right? Always look for the root cause. But having the repeatable process that is just simple to understand for everyone, like, okay, these are the steps that we go through to help identify the root cause before we get into our problem solving cadence. Having that in a way that, a 5th grader can, talk to you about, keeping it simple. And we've talked about this so many times. It is so valuable to just keep things simple. And I think that's where I'm going to end it. Keep it simple, because that's where the majority of your solutions are going to come from. Unless you're performing, rocket surgery, keep it simple.
So it's not rocket science, and it's not surgery. It's rocket surgery.
Yeah, it's a combination.
I'm going to remember that one. Man, he just overcomplicated that one saying rocket surgery.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to remember that. Yeah, I agree. And to close it out, I'm going to go ahead and say, just like I always do on all of my live streams, and Chris likes to do when he's hosting our every other Friday thing, if any of this content resonates with you, or you think it would resonate with a member of your audience or somebody else's audience, make sure you like, subscribe, share, repost, or the most important thing, like, holy cow, good old Michael has done over here. I'm going to have to leave a comment offline on Facebook about this, but, make sure you comment below so that you can keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. But we would like you to reshare this, because, we would like this message to get out to your audience. But
Yeah,
you can
thanks for the
comment too.
participation, Michael. We always encourage those comments, and we're gonna feed off of them in the things that we're saying. So I think that was awesome. I appreciate that.
I agree. And I have nothing else. This is JJ Hardy and Chris Pinkowski, and we're signing out.
Have an awesome weekend.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you enjoy these episodes, tune in and watch every week. I air a new episode every Wednesday, and if this information resonates with you, make sure you subscribe to my podcast. If you see it on my YouTube channel, subscribe to it there. But please make sure that you're raising awareness for leadership, because all problems can be solved with great leadership. On that note, I have leadership training for new managers. People promote their great employees to supervisors and managers without providing them with extra training. Don't do that to your people. Reach out to me if you want to hear more about that training. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.